بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. My dear brothers and sisters, it is a joy for me to be with you. The future leaders, inshallah, of this country and of the Muslim Ummah. Somebody has to take the lead. And inshallah, Allah Ta'ala has chosen you for this. Don't underestimate yourself. There is nothing you want to do that you cannot do it if you put your trust in Allah. And if you work with this feeling, you will see that you can accomplish a lot. I was requested by our brother that I should say something about myself to introduce myself to you, but I'll do it an introduction with some messages in it. Certain obstacles, certain things which we had faced and how we solved it, why we went to the next stage, and so on. So bear with me. I am not saying this to praise myself or something like that, but give you an example of a 17-year-old boy left from a small town in Iraq, Erbil, and went to England. And then London was more important than any other city in the world. It was really the capital of the world. Big difference from a small town to a capital of the world. And there were a lot of things around us there that the British wanted to domesticate us for them. Our scholarships were always in England, and they used to take the 50 topmost students in the high school to go there and study. I remember the first time when we came down from the plane and took our baggage, they invited us to go to Piccadilly Circle direct before even going to the hotel. And this place was known then and now. Most of the places of the facade which is in England. We chose to go to the hotel and pray. Because Maghrib and Isha we had not prayed. And when I told one of them, and they were these socialists and so on, meeting us, they said, I told him, we want to pray. Yeah, he started laughing. I said, why? What happened? He said, you have come to London to pray? So imagine the environment which we were brought in there. And that really made a difference in my psychology of how to be careful while we arrived to this place. But I brought even these small incidents to say that we may have occasions to be in places which we do not appreciate. Let us be firm with ourselves. If it affects our belief, our deen, our character, we should not be tolerating in it. It doesn't matter that, and very nicely and politely, I do not like to be in this kind of an occasion. Very, very carefully, and then they will respect you even more. All right. I had no contact with any Islamic movement. I had come from a religious family, and my father himself personally taught me how to read the Quran fully, and I made the khatam of reading. Once I was able to read the Quran fluently without mistakes, any other book comes in front of me, it was easy. So when I went to the primary school, they gave us the book of the first grade. And I read it for the teacher, all of it in 10, 15 minutes. And he said, no, no, you have to go to the second grade and so on. I went home telling my father that this is the case. He said, no, my son, you learn the Quran, go in the normal speed of the others, have a strong base, and you will always do better. And in fact, that was the advice, alhamdulillah, which helped me all my life. I could read the book which they are trying to teach us, the alphabets, so well that, but he said, stay there. And it made a difference. It helped me to be able, the first in the class every year. I do not encourage very much people to make the Hifz Quran fully, because we cannot keep it. It is difficult to keep it. If you don't spend hours and hours daily, you will not be able to do it. But be selective. Try to look at the Quran, and I brought, wallah, let them bring the Mahmoud the bag, a copy of the Quran, which is, by looking at it, it's a tafsir. It's called Tafsir al-Mawdu'i. The Quran is divided into 7 categories, and each category about Allah, about the Prophet, about Jannah, about Jahannam, about Ahkam, about the stories of the prophets, and so on. 7 categories. And when you look at it, you know in that page how many subjects you have. So Quran is not a book for you to read, is to read like any other book. It needs tadabbur. It needs thinking, digesting one subject and then go to the other subject. When you read it that way, you know how to benefit from the Quran. Otherwise, we get ajr, and this is very well known, and the hadith is very clear, not only for every line, not every word, but every letter. We get ajr for it from Allah Ta'ala. But this book did not come to us for ajr alone. It came to change the entire humanity. Whenever the Prophet was challenged about book, he says he doesn't make the other kinds of special events and so on. Quran is his mu'jiza. And it was. It changed the entire humanity. It transformed a society from illiterate people. Most of the Sahaba were illiterate. And they were like wolves in the desert. Anything they could catch, anything they could control and so on, they will take it for themselves. These people became the greatest civilization on earth. And these people, when they went to any place, people just by looking at them, observing them, they knew this is the kind of thing they want to be as a decent human being. They entered the fold of Islam. In the 10 years of the Medina presence of the Prophet ﷺ, the whole world knew what Islam is. And people were coming to the fold of Islam in very large numbers. I did deliberately this a bit longer than what I should have done. Went to school in Cornwall, in the southern part of India, Land's End, towards the end in the south. And we started studying GCE, O-level and A-level. A brother came to me and visited me there in 1959. This was 1958. I am revealing my age. I am over 30. All right? Barakallahu fikum. Yeah. Dr. Hisham al-Talib. Then he was also a student. He was studying electrical engineering. I came to study petroleum engineering. And we had another brother, Dr. Jamal Barzanji, who was in chemical engineering. He passed away, rahmatullahi alayhi, last year. He came and we gathered the Iraqi students because he was Iraqi and he especially wanted to talk to the Iraqi. He had one of his friends there, arranged for us the meeting. He presented Islam to us in such a way, wallahi, as though it's yesterday, in 1959. We loved Islam the way he presented it. And that was it. He put me in all this wonderful trouble. Went back to his school. He used to travel in the weekends. One weekend, Dr. Jamal, they had a joint car. We did not have money those days and so on. But it was da'wah. We remained in contact with each other. We said, well, now it's time that we collect all these Islamically oriented people. And he picked me up from among the group which were there and two others who he saw that we had more liking to be in the line of the Islamic movement. 1960, we formed the first national organization on whole Britain, and there were no other organization on a national level. There were Muslim Student Association in Birmingham, Islamic Society in Sheffield, and so on. And no even community organizations. There were a lot of Bengalis, Yemenis, Pakistanis, especially those who worked in the Navy. They used to come and stay there. There were no one to teach us. We did not have a sheikh. We had to start learning al-Islam there. So don't worry when you see some wonderful, bright person among you in the community, in the school, in the university, wherever you are working, pick them up. These leaders will be effective. When this organization was formed, the Muslims started to thinking of an organization for themselves. And this was Arabic speaking, because most of us, our English was too bad to be able to communicate everything in English. The numbers increased. Many people like us in the airport were met. They felt that they could come back. And that was a turning point also, that from then, not everyone will be spoiled, and they will go back to their countries to spoil their country as well, to become a model. We give back to the countries the model which is proud to be Muslim, even in a non-Muslim place. So I'm giving all these really points so that it can be done. Things will change. Just like what you have done in this country, and I always bring it in my speeches and lectures. 1970, Brother Anwar prepared for a lecture for me in the University of Malaya, in that big hall, about 2,000 people, 1,000 male and 1,000 female, and there wasn't even 50 out of the 1,000 ladies which had any kind of a scarf or some kind of cloth on their head. In 1980, he arranged a lecture for me in the same hall, and 950 of them had a full hijab. This is what you have done. And I really give it to example to all the other places in the world, wherever I go. You can do it without confrontation, without fighting. We are only to deliver the message. Even for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. I get the message and I give it to you. Let us go a bit now faster, it's much easier. Our brothers in Europe knew about our organization. We communicated with them. We went and formed a United Muslim Student Organization in Europe, UMSO, and it still exists. And the other one, the MSS, still exists in Britain. And this is another very important thing, that we should not have the leaders with these organizations which we form to staying for life in it. Every year we used to change the president, the executive. And therefore we had, after a few years, about 50, 60, they have already played leadership role and they have developed themselves. So please put this emphasis. You can remain, be president for a while and then give it to the others and help the new president to do better than what you have done. I remember in Toledo, we had one of our conventions of Muslim Student Association in America, and we had 10 past presidents in one room. And every one of them were working maybe harder than the new president. This is how leadership created. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ did with the Sahaba. Knew the point of strength of everyone, emphasized to him, you work in this line. Khalid bin Walid became Muslim. Next day he had given him the flag for the Muslim army. He knew the qualities of these people. We don't have to be all being very good fighters. And then Abu Bakr, we had Umar, we had Uthman. Each one had, if you bring and put Abu Bakr in place of Khalid, cannot do a good job. If you bring Khalid and put in place of Abu Bakr, he cannot do a good job. So let us, each one of us, discover in ourselves our strength and concentrate on it. And the job of us all collectively to provide the environment that you can develop yourself. All right. We said we are doing it only for Arabic-speaking people, MSS. How about the entire Muslim Ummah, who all of them in Britain must know English because they are studying in English. So we made forces. Federation of Islamic Student Societies in UK and Ireland. Many of you know it, and many of you maybe even gone to them and so on. And that was a turning point. We came out from the environment only Arab into Islam. And that was the last week I was in Britain when we formed the organization. I went to America, 1963. When we went there with all this experience, I knew what to do in America right away. And Alhamdulillah, we formed Muslim Student Association of US and Canada. Later on, I could say from all the things which I know in the last 55 years in the da'wah, that had the most impact on the Muslim world, this organization. Because the cream of the ummah, they used to bring them to America to study. Most of them never even studied Islam in school. In our countries, those days, nobody even, we used to get 1 hour a week studying Quran. 1 hour a week, and no other Islamic studies. These people went back to their country and they used to come. They have not prayed in their life in their country. They go and become leaders in their country of a university, of a minister, cabinet minister, big business people, and so on. The world changed through the people who studied there. And I am putting it this way, can you do similar thing with the foreign students which are coming to Malaysia, and they are coming in very big numbers? Can we provide for them the environment to enrich our society, and when they go back to be able to be leaders in their countries? We started 7 people. We called ourselves the MSA of US and Canada, representing 7 Islamic societies in different universities all over America. Next year we had 40 chapters. Next year 180, 120, 160, 200, 240, 200. It flourished. When the people saw that there is a clean environment where they could do their studies well and also enjoy themselves with their brothers and sisters. They did not need to go and spoil in the non-Islamic environment. So like incubators, each chapter played like an incubator for these people to develop. All right. Our budget first year was $200. These 7 people we took out from our pockets. And my scholarship in America was $200 a month, tuition paid by the university, because I had special scholarship from them. The next became 2,000 next year, the budget. Next year, 20,000, 200,000, $2 million. And $2 million those days were a huge amount. Like really not less than $200 million. That made the change. So one very important point from this, money is not difficult to get if you have the right people. Once you have the right qualified people, they know how to bring the money for it. And this we also give it as an example for the masjid and sajid. If you get the people who are going to make sajda in a place to understand they are making sajda, they know how to get their mosque. So our job is not to go and build, construct mosques and so on and so forth. They will do it whether you like it or not. And they will do it better than you. And their numbers are much bigger. Alhamdulillah, those years in 1963, we had only about 7 mosques for the Sunnis and so on. There were Elijah Muhammad group, about 36. And those also, I'll just give you a few minutes how we won them. We can do it. Nothing is difficult really for a Muslim when he puts his trust in Allah Ta'ala and does it sincerely for him. In one of the summers, 2 Kuwaiti brothers were going home. They used to give them ticket back and so on, scholarship. I told them, go and collect funds for the MSA, but don't go big out. Your brother, your sister, your mother, your uncle, your father, and so on and so forth. So one of them, Faisal Mugawi Mahmoud knows him, passed away about a year ago. May Allah bless his soul. And the other one, Mushari al-Khashra. They went there, and the Mushari, Faisal, went to his brother, and he used to work in the office of the Amir, the leader of the country. He said, my brother, we are working in America, and this is what we are doing for Islam and Muslims. And the fellow was shocked. When Faisal finished, he said, Faisal, you are doing these things there, and we are frightened that you have been completely lost. Come with me. And he went to one of the big merchants, he's known, and many of you may even have heard his name, Abdullah Ali al-Mutawwa. He passed a few years ago. He has done khair in almost more than 150 countries. He told them, this is Faisal, this is what he is saying. What do you think? He said, what are your projects? We had given them the project written. He looked at it. He said, well, this is 10,000 dinars. And 10,000 dinars was $33,000 from one man in one sitting. He appreciated that. And those days, $33,000 was a lot of money because our budget was $20,000 for the entire year. $20,000. We went to the next stage. And there were many others. And they made for him an interview in the newspaper. He came back only with $200,000. Alhamdulillah. You see, don't think that the money will be the obstacle. It is the right people. People who live their teaching. All right. We succeeded in America. We had about 370 by 69 of chapters all over the America. We said we should do this now on a worldwide basis. We have MSA in America. We want to go and form either a student or a youth organization on a national level in every country. And in '69, we formed IFSO, International Islamic Federation of Student Organizations. I know for sure, you and we, all of us were influenced by the literature which IFSO did for the Muslim world. 40 books, we translated to as many languages as we can, and one of them into 107 languages. Mabadi al-Islam, Towards Understanding Islam of Maududi. And still one of the best books available on Iman. ماذا خسر العالم بانحطاط المسلمين? What the world lost by Muslims being gone below. And so on. This uniformity these books brought, everybody reading about Islam in their own language, on everything, we brought a uniformity in the Muslim Ummah. And we saw the result in the biggest conference for youth, which I organized in Libya, Tripoli, 1973. Brother Anwar was there, and some of the other brothers also, they were there in that conference. The government of Gaddafi wanted to pass a resolution, the third world theory, for everybody should follow. One item is Islam, the other one is socialism, secular, with sociology, no, with socialism, barakallahu feek. You see, my son Mahmoud is helping out, jazakallahu khair. And nationalism. And Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman was chairman of the resolution committee. He told this number 3 in the whole revolution. He told him, brother, our brothers and sisters, we have talked to them. If you say Islam, they are all with you. And they will serve you. But if you put these things with it, I don't think we can pass it, this resolution. And they tried everywhere. It was not passed. The Ummah had really, we are clear that they cannot just laugh at us and mix Islam with other things. If so, I was the first Secretary General and made a trip around the world and started from the California, instead of the other way eastward, we came westward, and then we stopped in Hawaii, we stopped in Japan, in all these countries, and I came to where? Malaysia. Brother Anwar was the president of the Muslim Student Association in University of Malaya. PKPIM was formed that year. 1970. 71, ABIM was formed. In Mauritius, Student Islamic Movement was formed. In India, Student Islamic Movement was formed. Every country we went, and I went through maybe 25 countries. In 1 or 2 years, we had a student organization or youth organization there. Allah Ta'ala puts barakah on your time, barakah on your presentation, if you go in His path. اتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله. He will teach you. Khidr, he said, علمناه من لدنا علما. And my professor in petroleum engineering, good Muslim, he says, I'm always praying, Ya Allah, give me some of this ilm min ladunka ilma, because other people don't know it. You give it to me so that I will make discoveries more. And he made a lot of discoveries, alhamdulillah. He was, even by any standard, he is #1 in petroleum engineering in the world. He has got at least 100 recognitions from all over the world. Sayyid Muhammad Farooq Ali, he is now in Canada. I benefited from him a lot. Really, he was a help, day and night. And when I'm finishing my PhD and he was my advisor, he said, Ahmad, you have taken too long for the Islamic work, so come and write your thesis. He said, whatever you write, you give it to me, tomorrow I'll give it to you after I correct it and with my suggestions. In 3 months, I finished my PhD. Allah Ta'ala opens for you the ways. So don't hesitate, but really let me emphasize here a very important point. Let us tell all the students, anyone who is trying to get degrees, they must try to finish it 1 day earlier. If they don't, it will prolong and they will not be able to go to the next level. When you finish your bachelor's, I was so happy yesterday to see these students are graduating when I was with them, because these are the people who can change the world. If they don't have the degree, they will not be given the same importance. The same thing with master, the same with PhD. So please. And the second thing is, we have to look for excellence. We have to go for excellence. إن الله يحب امرؤا إذا عمل عملا أن يتقنه. إتقان. إتقان, excellence, perfection. You go for A+. If A comes, okay. A- comes, okay. But don't go for C so that you fall down below that. That is not befitting a Muslim. We want to be always. And we can be. And I have seen thousands, wallahi, who were failing and so on and so forth. When they put their trust in Allah and they worked hard, they were graduating with the good colors. All right. There are some important things here going on. Alhamdulillah. Now, after this succeeded, if so succeeded and we reached out, we had almost about 70, 80 countries in few years having national organizations. And we have held, I think, 1 or 2 major conferences of IFSO in Malaysia. Yeah, alhamdulillah. And you know, the people were coming to support us from every direction. Wallahi, some of them we don't even ask from them. Because they saw the good work, they say, please send us your project so that we can give you some help. Barakah. This is the very important word, really, barakah. You do your effort, Allah Ta'ala knows how to fix it for you. We went a step further, WAMI, World Assembly of Muslim Youth. And alhamdulillah, your predecessors have played a very important role in the development of WAMI. We reached to 120 countries. And now it's much more than that as well. So this graduate thing, how did I do it? Because I am a giant? No. I was one human being. And alhamdulillah, we were able to learn from early stages that if you work as a team, you will accomplish a lot. If you work individuals, you will be, no matter how great you are, you will be one. And from that, I have deducted, as a scientist, that 1 + 1 is equal to 11 when you are in full understanding with each other. Because that barakah does not show in the equation. One more, 111 times more effective. And so on. So when you have a, mashallah, a team like that, working in full congruency with each other, you will change the world. All right, after WAMI, we said the Muslim Ummah has all the resources, money, people, land, everything you want for 57 countries are majority Muslims in the world, in the OIC. But still our position has gone very, very low, and it's getting lower and lower, unfortunately. What is the wrong with the Muslims that with all these things and we still are in this bad shape? We brought about 30 greatest ulama of the Ummah in a meeting in 1977. And Brother Anwar, I think, was there also. In 1977, in Lugano, Switzerland. And stayed 1 week retreat. What is the one very important thing which has kept us to be behind? And they all came unanimously. Yusuf al-Qaradawi was there, Khurshid Ahmad of Pakistan was there, and everyone who is who in the last century, in the last 1/2 or 1/3 of the century of 20th century, they were there. All of them came with this. And then our group, Ahmad Tootooji, Hisham al-Talib, Jamal Barzanji, Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, Taha Jabir al-Alwani, Brother Anwar, and Dr. Farouqi, Ismail Farouqi. They were there. We said, all right, we have done enough general work telling the people Islam is good, and they are coming forward to us. Now we have to tell them how Islam is good. The intellectual part. I was very happy when I entered and I see Maqasid al-Sharia in the door. This is in the last 10 years, alhamdulillah, we have reached out to the best in the Muslim world. And we have published at least 12 or 13 books on Maqasid al-Sharia. This will change the entire work in the Muslim Ummah. I don't just read one hadith and give a decision, kill all these people, they are not doing this way, and that's it. Maqasid al-Sharia is what is the higher objectives of the Sharia. We look at all the ayat and hadith before we make a decision on this. A specific ayah in the Quran says, وَمَنْ قَتَلَ نَفْسًا بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ أَوْ فَسَادٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. If someone causes the death of one person as though he has caused the death of the entire humanity. And whoever enlivens one prevents someone to die unnecessarily, as though he has enlivened the whole humanity. So these are, when you put all the ayat and the hadith together, you will do it. This is the way how we should be thinking. And the methodology. Many people have wrong understanding of the Sunnah, and including we were in the same. Everything we say, Quran and Sunnah, yes. Sunnah was a living Quran on earth. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, living Quran on earth, as Aisha radiallahu anha had said, كان خلقه القرآن. So the Sunnah, we have no doubt in our mind that it is extremely important, because it shows how Quran to be lived for a human society. And he did it. And he gave an example to the world how the entire world get to know Islam. And now we have 2,000 million Muslims from one man, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So we have to bring in the factor of time and space. What sometimes you make a decision on a certain subject in Malaysia, maybe in another country will be different, because the environment is different. The time has changed. The Prophet ﷺ was in Medina, maximum population until he died, maybe not more than 20,000 people. Even Kuala Lumpur is maybe how much? 10 times or more, 100 times and more. So you cannot have a small prototype and think the same thing which is in a different environment. So please, the definition of Sunnah to us is the application of the Quran and in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taking into consideration the time and space factor. Time and space factor. This gives you the essence of it. The principle is correct, but you have to just put it for your environment. We cannot have Islam the same way in America and in a small village in India to apply the same way. Each one has its own environment. So some of these principles, when it becomes clear in our mind, we do not deny anything in Sunnah. But we know we can apply it in our lifetime, in our time and space better. Alhamdulillah, we formed Triple IT in 1981. And we all resigned from our works. We said voluntarily we will make this think tank and try to bring the message to the humanity. Alhamdulillah, it's now about 35 years. Intellectual work and intellectual change is not easy. It's not like you make an activity and you pass and you succeed and you do small things and so on. This is the entire ummah, it's effective. And we try to do it without any confrontation with anyone. Whoever doesn't accept it, barakallahu fiqh, your understanding of Islam is like this, go ahead. But we do not want to deprive those people who want to change the condition of the ummah to be better from their thinking. And this is where this maqasid al-sharia comes in. Brother Dr. Ahmad al-Raisuni is a champion in this thing. After about 10 years working with him and so on, we came and told him, yeah, Dr. Ahmad, how about if you could make a team of the best people who are your students and who have worked on maqasid al-Sharia. And make for us a plan. We will do the begging part. The funding, we will try to work on it, but this is your job because you are not good at beggar. We want it to happen. And we did that, and alhamdulillah, now they have produced enormous literature on all the details in many things in the Islamic conception. And he has published at least 13, 14 books recently. I don't know whether you have seen it or not. We have also got all the others, other than the Morocco also, really at least 14, 15 major books on this. So the Ummah has some material to start with. And this is only a beginning. And inshallah, it will contribute to the improvement. After WAMI, we formed Triple IT, and we were supposed to all go to America because in our Muslim countries, they don't give you opportunity to think different or to bring new ideas and so on and so forth. Alhamdulillah, we chose to be in America. We met a very great merchant and talked to him and so on. He said, and he was traditional Salafi brother. He likes to build mosques. He likes to help widows. He likes to help aitam. Any of the general, most of the people think is an Islamic work is. And he's a very wealthy person, Al-Rajahi, the one who formed the Rajahi Bank, and so on. So we started with him. He said, if you stay with me, we will help you in Triple IT, because we said we want to make, from the beginning, what you call waqf. So we had started, collected a waqf, because we didn't want every day going and begging. In the beginning, okay. But later on, we want to concentrate on our work. All right? Alhamdulillah, we worked with this man and started helping the Muslim Ummah all over the world. He has things which he likes. And I know how to organize things. And he was very happy to see the results, whatever he wanted. But we also started to telling him the other things which are important. Education. Scholarships. We need to have a full picture for a country, what is lacking for those Muslims, not just mosque and yatim and so on. We want to develop the whole Muslim community. Gradually he accepted it, alhamdulillah. And we were able to help in, at least in my time, 186 countries in the world where there are Muslims. Everyone to their level. Some country there is only 20 people. Some country there is 50. Some country 500, 5 million, 50 million, 500 million. Those people who speak Urdu, not less than 500 million in the world. And we worked with all of them. And alhamdulillah, a lot of good change came. The Muslims were deprived. This is the quality of work, not just quantity. Mosques, we had certain percentage. Schools, we had certain percentage. The relief, and so on. We divided all these sections which the Muslim Ummah needs, and we put on education. Not less than 30% later on. So I think I took long time, gave you the idea, the process and so on. I'll give you just example of how to deal in a situation like what happened in America with Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was a black man. And he was angry for his people. They were really very badly treated in America. And many of them were in a very destitute situations. The prisons still are 10 times more black people than white people. They don't give justice to them. Although they are 10 times more than in number, only 1/10 are black in America. He made his way of Islam. He said Allah came to Detroit. There was a good man, apparently had come from Morocco and so on, and his name was W.D. Fard. And he said this was Allah, and he became Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad changed his name. He said, I am Muhammad. So when you say La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah this way, and then they used to pray. They used to pray on the chairs, just like the churches. They used to fast. Instead of Ramadan, he chose December, shortest day of the week of the year. And they know when December starts. Muslims fight whether Ramadan came, it didn't come, and Eid came and didn't come. I'm putting it this way so that in the end I'll give you an answer to it. Anybody who is to come to America, the mass media go to meet him. What do you think of Elijah Muhammad? And this fellow has not even heard his name. He says, I don't know him. I haven't heard about him. He says, this is a man who is saying that he is Muhammad and Allah came to Detroit. And this mashayikh immediately, these are kafirs, these are non-Muslims, start attacking him. Doesn't get us anywhere. And you know the same people, X had brought most of his people to Elijah Muhammad's nation of Islam. He was killed by them. Okay. I was president in 1965 of MSA of US and Canada. We said, let us take the whole executive and go and meet this brother and see how we can win him. And we discussed among ourselves that one of us only speaks, and we put a strategy. If we can get him to permit us to go to their mosques and teach their people Arabic so that they will be able to pray properly, and to teach their imams something about Islam so that any question comes, they will be able to answer. We made it. We have access to them. Before, they were not allowing the Muslim students to go there because they go and cause trouble. And individually, every one of them, very angry when this kind of talk comes in. So we went, the whole executive committee, and I started talking to him. I said, Brother Elijah, what you are doing, we the Muslims, none of us can do 10% of what you are doing. And Wishidullah, I was saying it from all my heart, as though it is yesterday. What you have done, cleaned up these people, and he used to really clean them up. You see them afterwards in very nice clothes, very polite with people, very organized in everything which they do, and they listen to their sheikh. I have two requests from you. I introduced him, MSA and so on. He said, we are aware of it and so on. But, and he smiled. He said, go ahead, go ahead. He wanted to say something, but he didn't say. I said, we have two requests from you. Would you be kind enough to listen and tell us if it is possible to help us with it? So I told him about teaching the people Arabic so that at least they know what is Fatiha, what is this, and so on and so forth. He said, you have it. We were relaxed. Then we said, your imams, they are not, most of them qualified, and they don't know much, and they cannot answer it. Would you give us chance? Under your supervision. We teach them Arabic under your supervision. We will not say something which is you don't like. And the other one also, we teach them under your supervision. He said, you have it. So Alhamdulillah, I said. Then I said, Brother Elijah, how about, what would you like us to do for you? Honestly, as though it is in the front of, for 90 seconds, He was smiling and looking at me. And he said, please, don't abuse us. Don't tell things bad about us to the people. That's all. So I said, I promise you, as an organization, Muslim Student Association, none of us will make any statements negative for your group. But we cannot guarantee every Muslim not to do this, because some people, they become angry and they do not understand and so on, like we have understood you, and they may make them. We cannot bear the responsibility. He said, that is understandable. And we never made a statement after that against him. His son, Warith-ud-Din, one of his sons, and not the brightest and not the strongest. He used to come to our study circle in Chicago with Brother Ahmad and so on. And in a year, he had learned Islam as it should be. He said, I'll go and tell my father, please don't disturb the system. We had a Hajj, first time and the last time. We made a Hajj arrangement, and Warith-ud-Din went to Hajj with us. He came back even differently, much more committed. And his brother, Akbar, still living Akbar, Warith-ud-Din passed away. Akbar, he had studied in Azhar. He broke with his father, and he said, if you are going to teach this, I cannot help. Because he had studied Islamic studies and teaches in one of the universities in New York State. I think it was in one of those places. Warith-ud-Din one day could not take it. And he started saying, my father is wrong, and so on and so forth. Wallah, we went, two of us, Ahmad and myself, to him. Warith-ud-Din, please go and beg permission from your father and kiss his head and tell him I was wrong, so that he will have confidence in you. When he passed away in 1975, he became he appointed him to be their sheikh, and in 6 months, 85% or more of their people became true Muslims. Is this a better solution? Or just shouting and abusing and make them to fight among ourselves? Malcolm, when he went to Hajj, it was 74, yes. He came back, and I went to him. He started fighting with Elijah Muhammad and exposing him and so on. I said, Brother Malcolm, all the people from the Elijah Muhammad group is about 1 million people. So please, don't make yourself busy with this 1 million. Work on the other 29 million blacks who are, and they don't know anything about Islam. You give them, the way you started giving them Islam on the version of Elijah Muhammad, give them the Islam which you learned what it is. He said, Ahmed, I cannot. Because I have brought these people and I have put them in this mess. I said, okay, it will be our job to try to help them. But you take care of that 30. We cannot do it. But Allah Ta'ala has written for him Shahada. He could not do it, really. And one day he was giving a lecture at 12 noon in a very big hall, about 2,000 people in front of him. 4 people entered to the room from each corner with a rifle in their hand, not pistols, rifles. And they hit him at the same time, and he fell down and died. So, which one is better? Confrontation or non-confrontation? When the confrontation becomes necessary, we have to not cower out. But that is the last thing we should do, because there are so many other steps before it without the confrontation. So this is I think, not too bad an introduction, too long, But it gives you the environment and the thinking, and there are so many wonderful examples how to deal with the Shia, how to deal with Qadianis, how to deal with all these Salman Rushdies and so on and so forth. And what is the solution? If we had just ignored Salman Rushdie when he produced his book, nobody would have even heard his name. Today, every new president comes to America. They meet him. And I have followed it from after Kennedy. Every one of them met. So we made him a giant in the world because we made all these demonstrations and so many people died and so on. The life of a Muslim to us is worth to be exalted and not to be destroyed. All right, now we'll come to on these things.